Before we get into tonight's show, I want to give a quick shout out to Elite Mounts in Salina, Ohio. They make top-notch 100% American-made tool organization gear that fits just about any brand of handheld power tools, batteries, and chargers, along with other specialty mounts for your home workshop needs. You can check them out at elitemounts.com. And the guys over there were nice enough to offer a 10% discount for all my listeners. Just use the code Bigfoot10 at checkout. Enjoy the new episode format, thanks to Elite Mounts.
Out in the woods, shadows creep slow. Footprints deep where no man should go. Cold winds howl through hollers and brooks. Whispers of Bigfoot in the way it looks. Myths, monsters, and bullets in the night. Under a pale moon, strange glowing light. Truth's out there like a blade it cuts. Myths, monsters, and bullets run amok.
Welcome back to Myths, Monsters, and Mullets. I'm your host, John Methenkamp. On tonight's show, we have Daniel from the Remember That podcast. I was on their show, it's been a couple months ago now. That was a good time. But Daniel, he contacted me and said, hey, I've got some weird stuff that happened. We're going to call it supernatural. Not sure exactly where it falls. But Daniel, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. I appreciate you letting me come on the show, giving me, an audience to talk about what I've got, just a couple of strange instances that I can't explain.
Well, we like the strange here. I think that's why I married my wife. But anyway, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your show?
All right. So a little bit about Remember That podcast is basically me and my best friend. We are on a show with my son and a coworker of mine. And it's kind of a generational thing. So me and my best friend, we're mid 40s, and my son and his buddy, they're about mid 20s. And so what we do is we will review older movies for the most part. We do some reviews on different things like video games and music and stuff, but we do a lot of movies, and most of our movies are older. So it's interesting for us because me and my friend that are mid 40s, we already have a take on the movie. We've already seen the movie. A lot of times we already know the movie inside and out. And we have come to find out that my son and our other buddy, Cade, they haven't seen the movies at all a lot of times. So we get to see.
Well, that's just bad parenting.
Well, we get to see a very fresh perspective on something that me and Corky have already seen 100,000 times, and then we get to kind of debate a little bit, break it down, and then what we'll do is we'll rate each movie, and we've got different genres for what we're doing. We do a lot of horror movies. But we also do like an awesomely bad movie. That's kind of like a series that we've done a couple of movies on, and we'll just take the movie, watch it, and then make our notes and kind of just make fun of it the whole time. It's good fun.
Well, if you need a list of really bad movies, let me know, because that's all I watch. I love them. I absolutely love them.
I will definitely hit you up for some.
Absolutely. That's what I'm here for. I'm always here to help. So for my listeners, how are you related to Alan from Nevermore Hollows?
He is my first cousin. His mother and my mother are sisters.
I'm sorry to hear that.
He was A funny story about Alan. Um, he's about 10 years older than me. And so every time that we would go over to his house and he was there, um, he played guitar a lot. And I was just a little kid. So what I would do is I would go into his room and I'd just watch him play guitar. And, sometimes I'd sit there 30 minutes and sometimes I'm sitting there the whole time that we're there. But I always thought it was really cool that he could play guitar. And he even actually like let me like hold some chords and showed me this and that, a couple of times. I always thought that was really cool. And then it was later on in my adult life, we ended up running into each other and kind of started hanging out with each other again, and found out that he was also a writer. He wrote a lot of stories. He's wrote some books and whatnot, and that's always been a big passion of mine as well. And that always gives us something to talk about. Plus the love of horror. Who can forget that? He's a big horror buff, just like I am. And actually, that's another kind of funny thing about the family. That whole side of the family we're all horror buffs for the most part.
Well, longtime listeners of my show know that Alan and I are good friends, and that I'm also on Nevermore Hollows as a voice. So there's that connection um, between you and I, because not only was I on your show, but we got Nevermore Hollows in common too. But anyway, so let's talk about these strange occurrences. We can go in any order you want, but start wherever you want and let's break them down.
Okay, well, so I guess what I want to do is I want to go ahead and get it out there that I'm not pushing for people to believe what I'm saying. I'm not trying to make people believe in the paranormal. I'm not trying to push any kind of narrative, make people believe in ghosts or whatever. What I want to do is I want to tell you a few instances over my life that I've run into some situations that I myself could not explain, and that is as far as I go with it. Um, that I feel like that's as honest as I can be. I don't want to try to make anybody believe anything. I'm just basically on here. I'm gonna tell you what happened, and if you want to call BS on it, that's what it is. So I'll go ahead and get started like this. My mother was always big into horror, and she got me into horror. But nothing that I ever encountered or can remember supernatural ever happened to me until I was a teenager. And that brings me into the first instance was we were living in a house in Englewood, Tennessee. And Englewood, Tennessee, for those who don't know anything about it, is a very small town. You've got a population of like 1,200, but it is like just super creepy. Weird things happen in Englewood all the time. And it is really, all over the county. But so we bought this house in Englewood. We're staying in this house. We had been in it for maybe a year. And my mother's brother and his wife come over. So my aunt and uncle come over and they bring in a Ouija board. And before this, I had never fooled with Ouija boards. I didn't know anything about them. And they're basically playing this thing like a game. And they have this board, and we have fun with it. And we're asking it all sorts of questions. And, there were probably 6, 8 people that took turns using this board with, different people. So it never was like a one-on-one thing. Which is what we found out. That's kind of like a no. You're not supposed to use a Ouija board by yourself. You're always supposed to have another person. Um, but be it if that's a myth, whatever. But after this Ouija board left the house, They took it back with them. It's already got me and my friends' he's peaked. And so my grandfather's brother was an old man at the time, and he had a Ouija board that he owned from he had got back in the '60s or whatever, '60s or '70s. And so we were like, okay, so we can just keep this game going, and we get his Ouija board and bring it over. So now that's the second Ouija board that comes into my house, and then we of course start asking it like stupid questions, and it kind of got dark with some of the subject matter. But after that is when strange things started to happen at the house. And just from my own personal experience, I'm sitting there, I'm laying in my room, it's night, trying to go to sleep. You got school the next day. And we've got a set of stairs right outside my bedroom door, and they're squeaky. So you can definitely hear when somebody walks up and down it. And everybody's asleep in the house, nobody's up, nobody's sitting in the living room watching TV, nothing like that. And I hear footsteps walk up the stairs, and the top of the stairs are right at my door. So of course I'm sitting there going, okay, what's that? So this sort of thing starts happening more often, and it gets kind of normal. Okay, so now you're going at, that's his Casper. And so then me and my brother, to make it less scary, we start calling whatever it is Casper. And so you've got the stairs thing, and then we have a banister that's screwed into the wall, but it's not screwed into a joist on the top. So the top of the banister is just screwed into the drywall, and it comes loose, and you could take the banister and pull it back, and it would thump thump against the wall. So then we start hearing that. And this whole time we're still using this Ouija board, and now all of a sudden it's telling us that it's a different name. It's really starting to freak us out. And that's kind of how it started. And then after it started to get dark on us, and it started to really not be so friendly anymore in the conversations, uh, the the house itself started to feel really heavy. The air itself, you walk in and that there's just something off with the house. I'm not going to say it's haunted. I'm just saying something's off. And, my best friend lived two houses down. You're walking at night from either my house to his house or from his house to my house. You got 100 yards that you're going, and all of a sudden now you don't feel like you're by yourself. So you're walking around, you're standing under the street light, you're looking around, everything's dark, but you just don't feel like you're alone. So now you're like, okay, so this is only happening at night. Well, then it starts happening during the day. So now, you're you're walking, my grandparents live a quarter of a mile away. You cut through the park, through this little path through the park over to my grandparents' house. Now in the middle of the day, you feel like something's watching you. So you're looking around through the tree line, and you're looking down the baseball field, and nobody's there. Nobody's ever there, but you feel like you're being watched. And it was things like that all the time. It got to where it was at school. Went to the local high school, and you'd be sitting, in class, or you're going in between classes or whatever, and you've got other kids around, but you feel weird. You feel off. You feel like just not right about stuff. And so it got to that kind of thing. And things came to a head. Um, we started getting really bad luck. The kids that Me and my friends that were using the boards a lot, got to where, we were losing homework assignments. There was just weird stuff just started happening, like it was just bad luck. You try to make it home on time to watch this movie that you've been waiting for all week, and you, no matter how hard you try, you just can't make it, and you end up missing the movie. Little things like that turned into bigger things that was just bad luck. Now all of a sudden you're going into restaurants with your mom and dad, and your orders never right, crap like that. And it's like you're sitting there and it's like,
Well,
okay.
then Wendy's here in town must be haunted. Is all I gotta say. Somebody's using a Ouija board in that thing because my order's never right when I go in there.
It was, it was stuff like that any skeptic person that's not experiencing that can look at it and say, it's all in your head. That's your imagination. And I will be the first person to say, we were so freaked out at one point when we were in high school that probably 50% of it really was our imaginations. But the other 50%, we really couldn't explain. And that's as far as I can take it. That's just my story to you in that particular instance. I will say that I'll never use another Ouija board. Um, that's not happening. Uh,
Well, let's break this down a little bit here.
all right,
Um,
sure.
did your parents believe in the paranormal?
So at that time, my mother and father was already divorced. So my dad was out of the picture. And in fact, he didn't even live around here. He lived out of state. My mom, on the other hand, was very much, at least back then, I don't know how she is now. At least back then, she was very much a believer in the paranormal. And she had told me that even as a little girl, there was a shadow that followed her around. And at the time, I didn't really understand what she meant by that. And I was, during all of this stuff, she would say, "Yeah, the shadow, it's in the house." And she told me one time, she said it followed us to South Carolina when we lived there. I saw it. It followed us to Oklahoma whenever we lived there. And this is when I was a little kid. This is back when I wasn't experiencing anything. And she was saying the shadow followed her to the two out of state places that we lived back then, and this would have been the early to mid '80s. And she said, now the shadow is still watching me, and I was like, well, what do you mean by watching? What's it do? She says, it just stands. I was like, explain this. And she was like, well, it's a dark shape. You can't see through it. It's opaque, but it's just a dark shape. Looks like a head and shoulders and somewhat of a body. And she said it'll stand in front of my bedroom window, and you can see it pretty clearly because of the street light coming through. She said sometimes I can see it in the closet, which is a lot closer to where her bed was. That would freak me out because that was only a few feet away. She said that it used to stand in the kitchen a lot, and she could see um, different different spots in the kitchen where it would be. There was like a like a reflective something. I don't know if it was a mirror or whatever, but she could see it when it was, even when she couldn't see it directly, she could see its reflection. Um, and that's my mom telling me this, right? I never saw a shadow. I never I never saw anything like that. I do remember feeling a very heavy presence in the house, especially after we was messing with the Ouija boards, and I did feel like I was being watched both inside and outside of the house. But I never saw a shadow figure like she was talking about.
Do you remember the name that it used?
On the Ouija board,
Yeah.
I do. I'm not going to give it.
Okay.
I'm
Was
scared
it
of it.
was it okay? Was it a regular name or was it more demonic?
No, no, it wasn't demonic sounding at all. It was a very common word. It was a very common word, but it wasn't a name. It was
Okay.
just a very common word.
That's fine. That's fine. Did you notice um anybody's attitude in the house changing or their
No,
demeanor?
um, no. And I'll go ahead and say that my brother, my younger brother, he's 4 years younger than me. He was always kind of hard to deal with anyway. He was a hothead. And so he was always a hothead. He wasn't any more hot headed than what he normally was. My youngest brothers and sisters were very young at the time. I don't remember them uh, behaving any differently. I don't remember them acting like they were scared. Nothing like that. And I don't remember my mom having any other kind of attitude, you know, nothing like that. No kind of emotional swings. Um, Not that I can remember.
So did this just like resolve itself, or was there something that you did for to make this stop?
Um, I remember I was probably junior or senior in high school, and I just prayed about it. I was going to church at the time. I knew better than to open up about paranormal stuff to any of the people that I was going to church with, because that would have taken a wrong turn pretty quick. But uh, I was going to church at the time. Um, and I just it was really the bad luck that was really getting to me, and I knew, I felt this thing all the time, and I felt weird. It kind of, I just felt paranoid and scared all the time, and so basically I just prayed about it, and I told God in the prayer, um, you know, if you'll make this thing leave me alone, I won't touch another Ouija board ever. And I've kept up my end of the bargain, and I feel like he, did his end of the bargain, because a lot of that stuff went away. Now, I will say, even now, I'm still prone to having bad luck. Um, but I'm not going to say there's anything supernatural to that. I think it's just funny coincidences.
What happened to the Ouija board?
So the Ouija board that my aunt and uncle brought over stayed with my aunt and uncle. I never saw that one again. The Ouija board that we were using from my grandfather's brother, we ended up giving back to him, and I didn't see that again until after he died, and they were cleaning out his house, and he had a lot of old board games and whatnot, and that Ouija board was stuck in the board games, and I made sure that that thing went into the garbage.
So
Then
um do you feel like you didn't say its name, but whatever you were talking to, do you feel like it attached itself to you?
I, I honestly can't answer that. In some ways, yes, I do, but in some ways, no, I don't, because it wasn't just me that was experiencing all this stuff. It was also my friends, and my
They were
friends,
all playing with the Ouija board with you though, right?
yeah.
Okay.
The Ouija board was at my house for a while until I give it back to my uncle. After I give it back to my uncle, or my grandfather's brother, would have been my great uncle. After we give the board back, another buddy of mine actually went and bought another board, but I never used it. He was using it on his own, and he had brought it down to my house on a couple of times, a couple of different occasions. And this was before I prayed about it. We were still probably sophomores in high school. He had brought it down to my house, and the story that he told me was is whenever he was using it at his house, he was talking to somebody. He gave me the name. It was some kind of Indian princess, he said. And this Indian princess, whatever her name was, um, she gave him the initials of his future girlfriend. And that was kind of creepy. And that,
And it was right.
again, it was right. But the thing about that is that he was the one that was telling me this. I didn't see it spell out the initials. So
Gotcha.
you're going, okay, you could be lying. But he said that it gave him the initials of his future girlfriend 18 months in advance. What happened with that situation was he brought it down to my house, which is where 80% of all the activity was going on. And he said that after he used it at my house, the Indian princess got knocked off the board. He said that she wouldn't talk to him no more. So he blamed whatever it was in my house for basically getting on his board and getting rid of the Indian princess. That was his story.
Be right. He could be.
Yeah,
Maybe.
and I don't know. I don't know enough about all of that stuff to say yay or nay on anything. That's just what was going on. That's what I was seeing. It's what I was hearing in the way that I was feeling.
Did anybody else experience what you were experiencing with like the footsteps and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah, 100%. So we used to actually joke about it. Um, whenever my friends would come over to my house, my room, because it was an old house, we didn't have central heating and air. And so my mom had a window unit that was in her bedroom that basically cooled the entire downstairs. So the upstairs, we didn't have another window unit. So we had a box fan that we kept in the window. And we would turn the box fan to where it was basically pulling the hot air from the room out. So it was pushing out. And the box fan would overheat and it would just stop randomly. But it would also do that in the middle of winter too, when it was, 60 in there. And so you're sitting there going, okay, so that happened in front of several friends. There was 2 or 3 friends that saw that, plus my cousin. So there was 3 or 4 of them that saw it. But you can make the argument that says, yeah, you were just running the crap out of the fan, and it stayed so hot in that room anyway that it was just overheating the motor. But the thing would just randomly come back on, and then it'd be fine for a while, and then it would go back off sometimes, and sometimes it wouldn't. Sometimes you didn't have a problem with it. So it's one of those things that it's kind of like any skeptic can look and say, yeah, that's perfectly explainable. And any person that wants to believe the paranormal can easily say, oh, yeah, you had so much activity going on at your house. That's just one of the things that was happening.
So Casper, as you called it,
Casper.
was it just the footsteps and stuff like that, or
No,
did it seem
he
intelligent?
he unlocked the door for me one time. And that really happened. We were bringing in groceries, and the front door was locked. We didn't have it deadbolted. There was no deadbolt on it. It was just the knob. And so I had my hands full of groceries. My mom was still getting groceries out of the car, and I had one of my buddies with me. And I walked up to the door, and I kind of jiggled the handle, and I was like, oh crap, it's locked. I'm gonna have to wait for mom. And so I said, hey Casper, won't you unlock the door for me? And I heard a click, and then I turned the knob, and it turned, and I walked in the house, and I was like, okay. Now, yeah, that's weird, but that happened. And any skeptic could say your latch was barely latched anyway, and when you jiggled the knob, it made it to where it jiggled it enough to where it unlocked itself. And any skeptic could say that. And
Yeah,
any
but that's
believer,
that's an awful big coincidence that you would say it and hear it, and then boom, it opens. Like,
I think
I don't
so.
know.
I think
I don't
so. But
believe in
again,
coincidences.
I'm not trying to convince anybody that's what happened. I'm just telling you, I mentioned, hey Casper, why don't you unlock the door? And I heard a click and I was able to walk in.
That, like I said, I don't believe in coincidences. That's weird. That's
It
weird.
it, it was weird.
So
That was Yep, go
after
ahead.
you after you prayed about it, you didn't have anything else happen with Casper.
Nope. No, the house did feel off for a long time, but I also moved out within a year after I prayed about it. And so you know, I don't remember things being as bad as what they were after I prayed.
So your brother was younger than you, correct?
Yeah, he's 4 years younger than me.
Did he experience anything after you left? Do you know?
Uh, yes and no. He used the Ouija board with me and my friends. And, he would get freaked out just like what we would. But I never heard him like actually confide in me and say, "Hey man, do you feel like you're being watched? Do you feel like you're never alone in the house? Um, do you feel like, when you're sitting there in the living room watching TV, do you feel like something's behind you?" You know, that was the kind of things that was happening with me. And I never heard him ask me that or talk to me about any of that. Now, if he was talking to somebody else at the time, that could be something, but he never said anything to me about it.
But you said you felt that heaviness, not even just in the house. You felt it other places,
Yeah,
correct?
it was at school. It was whenever I was walking. Back then, living in a small town, we didn't have a lot of traffic. We Everybody had bicycles, and so we would get on our bikes and we would ride from our house into town, and we would go to the drugstore and we would go to the post office, and there was different hangouts that we went to. And sometimes it'd catch you out by yourself, and you're on your bike, and all of a sudden you just feel it. And it's like, I'm not by myself right now. It was just a feeling that you got. And there again, any skeptic could come back and say, first off, you're a hormonal teenager and your hormones are raging anyway. You feel completely different, every 5 minutes. Plus, you've got all this stuff that you think is going on in your head, so it's already got you amped up. And so, of course, you're going to realize, oh, I'm by myself, so all of a sudden I feel weird. Any skeptic could say that. And so,
Yeah,
you know,
you got skeptics with everything.
yeah, 100%.
I know what I've experienced in my life, and there's going to be people out there that are going to be like, oh, he's full of shit. But you were there. You know what you felt. You know what
Yeah,
you experienced.
that's right.
Ignore the critics. That's the way I
Yeah,
look at
yeah,
it. Who anybody that comes on my show, they were the ones that were experiencing it. The ones that are listening that don't believe, well, you weren't there. As far as I know, you can tell me. I'm talking to the people that are the critics. You can tell me you have a brain in your head. Well, I've never seen it, so that must mean it
right,
doesn't exist.
right, right.
That's how that works. Just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean that this doesn't exist. So what happened after that?
So after that, I'm not sure exactly when this second instance happened. A lot of that stuff kind of blurs together. Um, I'm wanting to say I was probably a senior in high school, junior or senior in high school. And like I said before, um, we lived right beside the park. And the park, you could take the park route and go in between yards, cut through people's yards and stuff. And you could go from my house to my grandparents' house. And my grandparents' house, their backyard opened up into the baseball field of the park. And you had this set of apartment buildings that were situated right beside the park. And it was 4 2-story units. And one of the units that was closest to the park, kind of overlooking the field that we were playing in, there was a woman lived alone, second story apartment, and she freaked out one day and jumped out the second story window and said that something was in the apartment trying to get her. Well, anybody that knows anything about Inglewood knows that there's a lot of drugs that go through Inglewood. And this woman could have been on meth or whatever. But uh, she jumped out of the window. Police showed up. They checked out the apartment, couldn't find anybody, couldn't find where anybody had broke in or anything like that. She had jumped out the side window. So that window was taped up. And then at the time, there was, I guess, crime scene tape that was across the door, and everything was locked up. So this woman had already, I guess, moved out, or she was not there at the time. Nobody was there at the time. And this might have been a day or two after the event happened. And me and my same buddies that were using the Ouija board, we're in the park in kind of the outfield. And at the time, the soccer organization was really big, so it was more of a soccer field than what it was an outfield for a baseball field. And so we were playing football in that soccer field, and we got around to talking about that weird woman that jumped out the windows. We're all about ghosts anyway. And so we got to talking about that, and we're looking up at the window, and there's no curtain in the window. And you can just see like darkness inside the it wasn't like black inside the window. You could definitely tell, that there was something in behind it, but it was for the most part dark. And we're sitting there and we're talking about this, and all of a sudden there is a shape, and it is a kind of a smoky white shape for what I can tell. And it had a head, it had a shoulders, and it disappeared at the bottom of the window. So there's a shape that comes up, and it's kind of just standing there. And we've got 3 witnesses that saw the same thing at the same time. And we're looking at this thing, and we're like, okay, do you guys see what I'm seeing? Is something standing there? And my other buddies are going, yeah, there is something standing there. I don't know what it is, and I was about to ask you if you saw it too. And so now we're sitting there kind of looking at this thing, and this thing's kind of looking at us, and it was in the window for every bit of a full minute, if not more. And we're going, okay, I don't know what we're looking at because nobody is in that apartment. And like it doesn't even look like somebody standing there with wearing clothes or anything. It's just a shape. We don't understand what we're looking at. And all of a sudden this shape turns and it walks out of the view of the window. And we're going, there's no way. That's a cleaning person that was cleaning the apartment, or somebody's moving that old woman's stuff out or something. So we go walking up to the second story apartment, and the door is locked, and we see the police tape that's across the door, and we're like, nobody's in this apartment, but we saw what we saw, and it was just weird.
Wow. So maybe the woman wasn't on meth. She really did see something,
Maybe
and you guys
so.
saw it too.
Maybe so. That was as far as my encounters, that's the only time that I have actually seen visually anything that I couldn't
Yeah.
explain. I've heard plenty. You hear noises or knocking or footsteps or whatever. You hear all kinds of stuff. But that was the first and only time that I have actually ever seen anything that I can't explain what it was.
So in proportions, did it look like it was the size of a person?
Yeah, yeah, it looked like the upper torso of any average sized human being, but it didn't have any distinguishing features. It was completely just a white, kind of smoky figure. It wasn't wispy. When I say smoky, I'm trying to describe the color, because you had a dark background from the window. There was a dark background already. So when this thing come through and was standing there looking at us, it wasn't white. It was more of a gray, I guess. It's just kind of a smoky color, but it definitely had the shape of an upper torso of a human being. Yeah, it was weird.
What did your friends say about all this?
So, um, there were four of us that I can remember, and it was me and Corky. And Corky still remembers it to this day, and he's like, "Yeah, man, I don't know what it was. I can't explain it. Saw it." Another one of our buddies now claims that he didn't see it. He claims that he doesn't remember the instance conveniently. Um, so he claims that he doesn't remember. And then the fourth guy, I don't really talk to anymore, so I don't know what he would say. I haven't talked to that guy about that since. He was at the time more like Corky's buddy that was a couple of years younger than us that kind of palled around with us. And so, him and Corky were always a lot closer than me. So I don't know what he would actually say. But I do know that my buddy Corky and me, we're still on the same thing. We still say that we saw something we can't explain, and the other buddy now says that he's changed his tune. He wasn't there. He doesn't remember being there.
Do you think that, because I know that there's people like this, um, they've been, what's the word I'm looking for? Convinced that the paranormal doesn't exist. So in their minds, that must not have happened.
Well, this guy apparently believes in the paranormal. Is the funny part about it. Um, because he lives in an old house, and he claims that the deceased people that were there before he bought the house are still there. There's different things, and I've saw a curtain move while I was at his house, that I couldn't explain how it moved. So there's probably some validity there. But the point that I'm making is he's saying that he doesn't remember that instance when we saw the whatever it was. So it's not
Weird.
like he's, yeah. It's, I don't know. It's weird. The whole situation was weird.
Maybe he just doesn't want to be associated with Corky.
Well, he may not want to be associated with me either. I don't know. There's no telling. you know.
Corky's coming
He's
on my
probably
show in
like,
October, so he's going to
he
see
told me
this
about
before he
that.
comes on the show.
Yeah, you have to ask him about that. Is
I
see if he
will.
tells the story the same way that I tell it. You know, I mean, everybody remembers things differently. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
absolutely.
that instance was, I just can't explain it. I don't know what it was that we were looking at.
Yeah, that's kind of freaky though. I mean, for the woman to say that something chased her out of the house,
Yeah, 100%.
and and then you guys see that in the window when there's crime scene tape across the door.
Yeah,
Obviously, nobody's in there.
yeah.
Wow.
We tried every way in the world to rationalize it out, and we kept pulling up empty. Uh, you know, cleaning person or a family member or whatever, and there just wasn't anybody in the apartment. There just wasn't anybody there.
Wow.
Yeah,
Holy cow. I don't know what to make of that one. I mean, I think to me, you saw a ghost. You saw something.
I saw something. I can't explain what it was. I saw something.
You saw whatever chased that woman out the window is what it is.
Probably so. And if you would have asked me back then, I'd been, oh yeah, that was a ghost, man. It was the scariest thing in the world. It chased that woman out, you know. And I was a lot, you know, more high strung back then too. But yes, uh, many years later, I can honestly say I have no idea what the hell I was looking at. I don't know what that was.
I'm just gonna say it was a ghost. And
I
you saw a ghost.
it could have been.
Yeah. I mean, whether it was or not, there's no way to go back and find out. So it was a ghost.
I you know, uh, Inglewood is just a very strange place, man. And Alan's got stories too. Alan
Yeah, I was gonna
lives,
say he had a house. That's where one of the houses he lived in was
yeah,
um, haunted.
yeah, and I know where that house is too. Um, it was Inglewood is just a strange place, and that's something else about small towns. Is every small town has got ghost stories. You know, every small town has, you know, creepy things happen. Um, urban legends everybody knows about, things like that, you know. And that's one of the things that I really enjoy about small towns, and the stories that I write and the, you know, the characters that I have and whatnot always live in a small town, and there's part of the magic of being in a small town is that you can make it as haunted as you want to in a story. And a lot of the stories that I write are loosely based on some of the stuff that I've seen.
Yeah. Wow. I think that this. I think because in small towns there's less people, word gets out a little quicker.
Word of mouth, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in a small town. If I farted on a street corner, my mom knew it before I got home. You
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Um, but what I'm saying is, so it gets around. That house is haunted. Whereas in like a big city or whatever, I don't think people don't talk as much. They're not as close as people in small towns are.
Right, right.
And so when this stuff goes on in the bigger towns or bigger cities, I just don't think that it gets out the way it does in small towns. So people could say that small towns are haunted. I think everywhere's haunted. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, everywhere. The I was looking at, I don't know if it was a meme or what exactly it was online, and it said basically, and it had the southern part of the United States kind of had a red line around it, and all the stuff in there was kind of colored over with a light red, and it said "Land of the Dead," and it was talking about there was so many more cemeteries and graveyards that were in the South than what there were in other states that it was making a comparison to or whatever. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but I thought that it was a cool looking, you know, visual.
Here's something to think about. You ever know of a cemetery that got full?
No, you just keep right on adding to them.
But we got to be running out of room in these cemeteries.
Well, I know in is it New Orleans where they started burying or people in mausoleums or whatever because of the water level. You would have flooding and stuff, and then it would basically bring up the dead bodies from the ground or however they were doing it. I always thought that was kind of unique,
Yeah.
for lack of a better
I'm
word.
just saying, just think back to like this. I mean, we've been here since basically 1492, as the white man has. Um, but even the Native Americans, I can understand the Native American burial sites getting lost. But the white people, we have all these cemeteries, but they never seem to actually get full. But there's been a lot of people die. I think that's kind of like the Matrix type thing. Maybe,
Yeah,
maybe it's not really happening. I just went all conspiratorial.
there you go. And that's something that Corky's all about, the conspiracy theories and stuff. So you can drop that on him, and
I
he'll love
will.
that. He'll love
Yeah.
that.
So did you say you had one more?
Yeah. So I've got one more. It's the most recent. It's another kind of short one. But basically, have you ever heard of the old South Pittsburgh Hospital? All right. So um, the old South Pittsburgh Hospital was a hospital that was decommissioned in 1998, and it's about a 30 to 40 minute drive south of Chattanooga, Tennessee. And this hospital, like I said, was decommissioned in '98, and they started doing ghost tours in it because it was apparently known to be haunted. Now, it's been a few things since 1998, and I don't know the history like the tour guides and whatnot, because you can actually, take tours of this place. Um, it's been a dentist office. They've had a tattoo parlor in some of the bottom parts of it since then. So I'm not
Well,
sure
the
exactly.
dentist office would be the scariest thing.
Yeah, right, right. Um, so I'm not real sure when they started doing the ghost tours, but my wife's cousin is one of the tour guides down there, and they were having an event. And so he was like, "Hey, you guys need to come to the event. You get a ticket. We've got probably 40 or 50 people that's showing up to this thing. Basically, what we're going to do is do a tour, and then we'll uh, play like hide and seek." They had some different little games and whatnot that you could play along with the tour. It's like a 3 hour, 4 hour event. And so we're like, okay, cool. And so we went, had a lot of fun. Um, actually met some really cool people. Didn't we did the ghost hunt thing to where everybody kind of split up into 2 and 3 man groups and went into different parts of the hospital, and had the EVP equipment and all this other. We did that. Um, didn't hear anything, didn't see anything, nothing happened, but it was still a pretty cool experience. And so I was telling my kids about it and how much fun that me and my wife had. And they wanted to go on a tour. So I said, well, let me get with her cousin there and see what he can do. And so it was Thanksgiving night in 22. Um, and so he said, we can do it overnight. He said, it'll be me and another guy. And then you bring your crew and we'll do an overnight. And basically, what we'll do is kind of hang out. I'll give you the standard tour that I give everybody, and then we'll do the ghost hunt. And we were like, okay, cool. And that's what we did. We showed up, waited until it got dark. It was already dark by the time we got there. Went in, we set up in kind of like their makeshift cafeteria on the second floor. And so basically, we started this ghost hunt, and it was all good fun. Nothing was really happening, and there was a few things that um, my wife said that she felt like her hair got played with or something in one of the rooms. I never felt anything, but one of the creepy things is that they were doing uh, like a spirit box thing, to where you talk to it and you ask it questions, and it's yes or no questions, and it'll light up. If it lights up, it's yes. If it doesn't, it's no, or whatever. Can't remember exactly how it was, but the the thing ended up getting around to basically saying that I had an attachment on me. And so it got me to thinking about, whenever we were messing with the Ouija board, and how, my my bad luck is still, kind of there. And even though, I've not had a problem with it, you know, there could be some attachment or whatever. I don't really buy it. But I thought that it was ironic that this thing was saying that I had an attachment. And it got down to where it was about 4 o'clock in the morning or so. We were about to wrap up. We left at like 5 or 5:30, but we are basically doing the Estes method. And the Estes method, for anybody that doesn't know, is when somebody goes into a room, and you got these other people that's asking these questions, and you got this other person that it's almost like they've got Tourette's or something. They're just yelling out random words, whatever they hear. And so basically, um, my dad had passed away in 2019. And all of a sudden, something starts saying that it's my dad. And my daughter is the one with the headphones on. And so she's at the end of this really dark hall. There's no electricity in there. So she's at the end of this really dark hall, and my son is standing with her, and everybody else is on the other side of the really dark hall, about, 200 or 300 feet away. And she starts like really crying, and she's really emotional and upset, because she said that whatever was coming through the headphones actually said my name, my ex-wife's name, her name, my son's name, and it said that it was my dad. And
Holy cow.
yeah, this is like 4:30 in the morning, and so she's crying, and she's like, "I don't want to do this anymore." So we kind of ended the night with that. Um, we leave, and everything is run of the mill normal stuff at home up until probably the middle of December. And all of a sudden, 10:45 at night, me and my wife are laying in bed, and we hear a knock on the wall outside of our bedroom door. And I can't remember if it was 3 knocks or 2 knocks, but it was a couple of knocks. It was 10:45. And we thought, that's weird. Because sometimes, you hear weird stuff in the house anyway, so we're not really paying much attention to it. And then all of a sudden, the next night, right at 10:45, the exact same knock happens at 10:45. And at that point, I'm going, all right, uh, I don't know what this is, but I don't want it in the house. And so later that night, I prayed again, and after that, we haven't heard anything. Um, and that was, like I said, that was in 22. So it's been 3 years, 4 years, 3 years. But it was weird, and I couldn't explain it. And the oddball thing is a I've got something that's telling my daughter that it's my dad, and B, couple of weeks after we get home, there is knocking on the wall on 2 consecutive nights at exactly the same time. So I can't explain that either. But I can say that whatever that was, isn't here anymore because after I prayed, uh, we haven't had a problem.
So between the Ouija board whenever you were a kid and this ghost hunt, did you do anything like paranormal, like ghost
Nope,
hunts or anything like that in between?
no,
So
none,
you never did like a spirit box session or anything like that in
nothing,
between those two things.
nothing, nothing in between those two events.
I think it's odd that you were using two different communication methods and that's the only time that you had stuff happen.
Yeah, I think that's a little odd. I think that basically what I take from it, I'm not going to do another ghost hunt. I'll just tell you that right now. Um, I think basically what I can take away from it is every time that I do something that I'm not I don't really need to be doing. Every time that I start messing with this paranormal stuff out of interest, um, I get something negative in return. And I think that it's just something that I don't need to be entertaining myself with or even doing for fun, um, because the outcome and the aftermath of it is never a positive experience. It's always something negative. And so I take it as, that's my red flag. That's saying, hey man, you don't need to be fooling with this stuff.
Right. Right. Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing is, it just seems odd that first it was a Ouija board, which is a way to communicate. You do an Estes session, which I've done an Estes session before and had some weird stuff happen too.
It's weird, yeah. It's pretty weird.
And both times that you've done this stuff, you had something come through that not only came through and talked, but it seems like something followed you both times.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. What advice would you give to people about Ouija boards and the Estes experiment?
Honestly, when it comes to the Estes uh, method and anything happening with spirit boxes and EMF meters, uh, I can't speak on it a whole lot because I only had like one experience from it. My experience was not good, but my kids never did say that they had any kind of negative experience from it. So I can't really speak about that as much as I can the Ouija board. I would strongly recommend both ways. You're when you start dealing with that kind of stuff, you're dealing with stuff that you probably don't need to be dealing with, especially when it comes to the Ouija boards. Um, I'm not going to do another ghost hunt. I'll never touch another Ouija board again. Um, if it's anything more than just throwing one in the garbage, because it's you. In my opinion, you're just fooling. You're fooling with something that is going to be out of your control, and I don't like messing with things that are out of my control. Um, you know, even if you want to say, okay, it's a ghost, you know, you're going to try to agitate the ghost. You're going to try to amp the ghost up. I don't want to do that with something that I can't see.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Well, Daniel, we've been doing this for about an hour, and this is about the time I start losing my audience. So
Really? You got about an hour?
yeah, about an hour. About an hour is about their attention span.
Okay.
So why don't you tell everybody where they can find Remember That podcast?
Well, we are on YouTube and we are on Spotify. Most of our views come from YouTube. But we're still audio right now. We don't have video ready yet because all of our guys aren't ready for video yet. But you can find Remember That podcast on YouTube and Spotify both. And if you do have trouble uh, with just Remember That, then just type in Remember That, The Shining, and that'll pull us up, and then you can pull us up from there easy. That's what I tell anybody that says, "Hey, man, I tried to look you up and I couldn't. It wouldn't pull you up because it's too common of a name or whatever." Just put "Remember That Podcast, The Shining," and it'll pull our Shining episode up, and then you can get to it from there really easy.
Well, I'm going to put links to your YouTube and your Spotify in the description,
I
so
appreciate
people
that.
won't have an excuse not to be able to find you when they come and listen to this show.
Awesome.
But
Awesome.
But Daniel, I do appreciate you coming on Myths, Monsters, and Mullets. And I look forward to working with you guys some more. We'll do some more movie reviews.
Yeah, 100%, man. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And until next time, if you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share, maybe you saw Bigfoot, maybe a UFO, maybe you saw some ghost standing in the second story window of a house where some lady tried to unalive herself, I want to hear it. Email me at mythsandmullets@gmail.com. Until next time, talk to you later. Gotta go. Once again, thanks to Elite Mounts for the new episode format. If you like this format better than the way I was doing it before, where we do the housekeeping here at the end, let me know in the comments. Make sure you're checking out all the descriptions on all my videos. Down below, you're going to find a list of all my favorite podcasts. Nevermore Hollows, Drunken Cryptids, Chumming with the Spirits, Ghost Gossip. So many great podcasts. I like them. I think you're going to enjoy them. Give them a listen. Myths, Monsters, and Mullets is proud to be a part of Midnight Realm Radio. It's an internet radio station featuring podcasts from the paranormal to true crime that runs 24 hours, 7 days a week. You can find a link down below in the description. I really do appreciate all the support I've been getting over the last couple months. If you haven't yet, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. Like, comment, share, tell a friend about the show. That's the only way we can continue to grow. And once again, if you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share and you'd like to be on the show, you can email me at mythsandmullets@gmail.com. Good night, everyone.
Shadow in the pines lurking in the dusky air. Bigfoot stomps through the woods like he don't care. Lights in the sky flash green then blue. Aliens descending with a secret or two. Whispers in the breeze, cold fingers down your spine.